Imagine what's possible when learning doesn't get in the way of life. At Capella University, our game-changing FlexPath learning format lets you set your own deadlines so you can learn at a time and pace that works for you. It's an education you can tailor to your schedule. That means you don't have to put your life on hold to pursue your professional goals. Instead, enjoy learning your way and earn your degree without missing a beat. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.
Welcome to No One Told Us, the podcast that tells the truth about parenting and talks about all the stuff you wish you knew before having kids. I'm your host, Rachel Shepard-Ohta, and today I'm so excited to speak with Danielle Bayard Jackson, a certified friendship coach. Danielle teaches women how to make and maintain better friendships through research-based methodology. Danielle is also the author of Fighting for Our Friendships, the Science and Art of Conflict and Connection in Women's Relationships, and she's the spokesperson for Bumble for Friends. And with that work has been featured in NBC News, The New York Times, and Psychology Today. Danielle's insights and frameworks have been trusted by many, and I'm so excited to chat with her today all about female friendships. Welcome, Danielle. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to dig into this topic because it's so important.
It's so important. And honestly, if I'm just being totally transparent, it's something that I've really struggled with, especially since becoming a mom. Even though I've been a mom now for like 7 years, I still don't feel like I have like that core group that I had in like high school or even in college. It's hard to make friends and to keep friends as moms. So I'm really excited to dive in and hear what you have to say about this. Before we kind of dive in, though, I would love to hear just how you kind of first got interested in this topic and what sparked the idea for the book. How did you start studying friendships and female friendships in particular?
Yeah, it's so funny because if I go to, like, let's say a party or some type of social gathering and people inevitably ask, so what do you do? I always pause because before I tell somebody, when I tell people, oh, I'm a friendship coach and educator, they're always like, oh, that's so cute. And I'm just like, I get it. I know it. I promise it's a real job. But, I actually started as a high school English teacher for 12th graders. And between classes, after school, it's the number one thing my, female students that they wanted to talk about. And so I didn't realize at the time I was kind of coaching them through these situations. What feels good to you? Well, how does she make you feel when you're together? And then I worked my way up to department chair at one of the largest high schools in the country. And during our staff meetings, I'm realizing, oh gosh, okay, in order for us to give good instruction in class, the kids have to be feeling confident in their social connections, because we were learning we couldn't even give good instruction when so-and-so wasn't talking to so-and-so and they didn't want to participate if the girl they didn't like was watching. There were so many dynamics tied to issues of connection and belonging. And then I left the world of education. I got into public relations, and it didn't take long before I realized, man, this is so weird. I'm working with charismatic, high-achieving, extroverted women. They're on TV doing all the shiny things, and secretly, they too are wildly dissatisfied with their friendships with other women. But of course, they're not going to share that because that goes against the look of being cool and successful. So for the last 6 years, I've been leveraging my background in education to study what the research has to say about women's cooperation, communication, and conflict. And so far, it's been a really fun and illuminating journey.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And while you were talking, I've done a lot of work and training in the field of attachment. And it's so interesting when you say that about like these kids were not feeling safe enough to learn or to pay attention because they were not feeling that relational safety, right? They weren't feeling in connection and safe in that way in class. And I think that's so interesting. And I'm sure that ties into children all the way through adults, right? If we aren't feeling emotionally safe and relationally safe, it's really hard to learn or to do any other high level things. So that's so interesting that you used to be a teacher. I was a teacher as well, but for elementary school. So I saw like all of those different dynamics in such a different way, like with sharing and tattletaling and all of those things. Which are hopefully not still happening in high school, but who knows?
Yeah, oh, for sure. And in adulthood, it's like you have to share. It's not always about you. A lot of us are still learning that lesson.
Totally. Okay, so tell us more about then the book. Where did you get the idea for kind of the lens that you give throughout the book and why you decided to focus in this way?
Yeah, I just two things happened. I didn't set out to write a book, but I was showing up on social, specifically TikTok, a lot, sharing a new study. Oh, there's a study that finds that women tend to fight this way, or they have hostility toward guys, girls, like just interesting things I was learning. And somebody commented one day, they were like, "Oh, I'm just sitting over here waiting for your book." And I thought, oh, I guess that makes sense to have a consolidated space of all this information. But I just realized that a lot of the friendship resources I was seeing, they either were like compilations of a bunch of friendship stories, which can be aspirational and inspirational, or they were super academic by psychologists, which were helpful, but also you're really gonna have to think through what they're saying. And I just thought, well, what if we want both? Like, what if I wanted to share high level the mechanics of women's friendships to equip you almost to be like a sociologist? I want you to be able to see two women falling out, and I want you to be able to say, oh, I know what's going on here, but then you also got to be equipped with some tangible tactics to navigate the day-to-day business of being friends. So the book aims to highlight both of those things with the ultimate goal of you enjoying more satisfaction in your friendships with other women.
And I think this is going to be so helpful because I think for all women, we could use some ideas and even just some like solidarity to know that there's nothing wrong with us. We're not weird. We're not like losers if we don't have a really strong group of friends. You mentioned TikTok too. I think there's so many of us also that compare our friendships with other people, with strangers on the internet. And we say, oh, they have so many friends. They're always going out with their friends. Why isn't that happening for me? What are some of the main reasons that you find women in particular are struggling with either making friends or keeping friendships strong?
Oh my gosh. I mean, there's so many things, but if we just had to kind of like high level, I think one is there are fewer models readily available to us of reconciliation. I think we could both give a bajillion examples of women falling out or going back and forth and they don't recover. And that happens. Sometimes a friendship does expire and it would be unhealthy to try to preserve, those unhealthy dynamics. So sometimes that is necessary. But a lot of us, we don't have a picture in our brains that we can pull up in a tense moment with a friend of how to talk through this and be okay after, or how to take feedback and, oh, it stings, but you know what? Okay, I hear you. I'm going to adapt, maybe in a romantic context. But a lot of us are looking for those models and we've never had them. So that can be tricky. You have a lot of cultural and societal influences that shape how we show up with one another. I get kind of upset, a little irritated when I hear people say like, oh, women are just you're so petty. Just tell her how you feel. And it's like, there's so much happening that you don't even see that makes us feel like we have to show up in this way. So for example, with bringing a confrontation, a lot of women are avoidant in that way. Well, it's because, the research shows that it's important to us to maintain an appearance of cooperation. And we have to think through 100 different things that a man might not. How do I raise this issue without looking like I'm being difficult? How do I raise this issue without her abandoning me because she thinks I'm coming at her when I'm supposed to be easygoing girl? So we have to constantly calculate, how do I do this thing, set these boundaries without looking like the bad guy? And it's so much mental labor to know how to navigate seemingly tender spaces. And so there's just a lot, I think, of so many factors that work together to make it kind of complicated.
Yeah, I am a big Bravo fan, so I watch The Real Housewives religiously, and I'm always struck by how often and how comfortable they are with fighting with each other and with calling each other out and saying, you did this wrong, that hurt me. When you say we don't have a model, like, to me, that's the only model that I know of. And it's not even my real life, but like, I feel like I have never fought with a friend like that and recovered ever. I've really never even fought with a friend like that, period.
Yeah.
So I hear what you're saying about how we don't have models of disagreement and reconciliation and all of that you might have with a romantic partner, but I don't think that we do it with our friends.
Totally. And it's so funny because I love all those housewives shows too. I'm like, oh, this is just a cultural study. I'm just
right. It's research.
Yeah, this is totally research. But it's so interesting because you're right. Like when I'm pulling up a visual of like what to do here when this friend has made me uncomfortable or she kind of disappointed me, what's next? Do I go to my algorithm and there's so much chatter around cut her off? You don't need fake friends like that. Like there's so much, you should be happy if she's not making you happy. Like, oh, okay. But how do I develop resilience? How do I develop courage? It's courageous. It's vulnerable to say, hey, I feel some kind of way about what you said yesterday. Help me understand what you meant, girl. And I'm still going to be here after we have this conversation. But with those Real Housewives things, like, yeah, we see this female dominated space, we see conflict, which is inevitable in any human relationship, but we're seeing how they do it. And there's a lot of ego involved, first of all, because I'm not going to let her make me look, especially on TV, like she's, more powerful than me. So I need to check her. There's a lot of that's being driven. It's a highly visible thing. So you're being watched. Are you trying to maintain a sense of control and power? Also in those shows, we have to remember a lot of them are not friends. They were cast
Right, they're
together.
coworkers. Yeah.
100%. So like, do I show up differently if I'm not invested in this relationship in that way? And then finally, you're getting more airtime when you have drama. And if your ultimate goal is to kind of be a star, the drive or the motivator is really different, because I'm like you, I'll watch those shows and I'm like, I don't know how you're cussing each other out and then being like, you know what we need? A trip to Greece. Yeah.
Right.
I'm like, this is chaotic.
It's crazy. It's so crazy. And yeah, it's like they don't get the luxury of cutting someone off if they're treating them badly, because they have
Right.
to keep working together. They have to film together, right? Okay, we're going to take a quick departure from Housewives for a bit and talk specifically about friendships around moms and in motherhood. So we'll take a quick break and be right back. We're at the start of a new year, and I know so many people, when January or February roll around, they're like, okay, I am ready to get my nutrition locked in for this year. You want to be healthy, you want to feel good, and Factor is one really easy way to get towards your fitness goals. Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating well so easy. They're dietitian approved, and they're ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes, so you can fuel right and feel great no matter what you have going on in your schedule. You're crazy busy with kids and work and driving here and there, but you can take just a couple of minutes to heat up and eat a delicious, healthy Factor meal. Factor arrives fresh and fully prepared. It's perfect for any busy lifestyle. There's over 40 options, so you never get bored. I personally always love the chicken and pasta recipes, whereas my husband loves their steaks. They're honestly restaurant quality taste. They are so, so delicious and so filling. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/no-one-told-us-50 off and use code FACTORPODCAST to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code FACTORPODCAST at factormeals.com/no-one-told-us-50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Let's be honest, going grocery shopping is not always super fun, and a lot of the options at our local grocery stores are just not as healthy as I would like them to be. That's why I love using Thrive Market. It's like having a personal guide to healthier living for my entire family. We've been using Thrive for years and years, and we absolutely love that they have trusted, family-friendly brands, and you don't have to spend hours in the grocery store. We love using Thrive for our pantry staples. We love the Thrive brand coffee. We always have that on stock. We get all of our kids' lunchbox snacks and just all of the high protein options that my husband and I love to get us fueled up and feeling good. Instead of things like sugar-packed snacks for the kids, we love brands like Simple Mills crackers, Annie's mac and cheese, Chomp's beef sticks, and Lesser Evil popcorn. Plus, you get them all at such a great price. And I've also found so many new brands that I never would have heard of or seen before in our local grocery stores. If you're ready for a junk-free start to 2025, head to thrivemarket.com/HeySleepyBaby. Get 30% off your first order plus a free $60 gift. That's Thrive, THRIVE market.com/HeySleepyBaby. thrivemarket.com/HeySleepyBaby. So Danielle, there are lots of women that struggle with finding and maintaining friends after we have kids. I think part of it is just that we're so overwhelmed. We have so little time, so little emotional energy to devote to somebody else. I also think we're so lonely at the same time, and we do want those connections and those friendships. How do you teach moms in particular how to carve out time and how to find friendships that will be fulfilling?
Yeah. It can be such a tough spot to be in. I like to start with kind of a mindset thing at the risk of sounding life coachy. I need other moms, because, my kids are 6 and 2, so I'm in it, The first thing I desperately want to plead with moms about is to not get discouraged, because it's so easy to start to feel like how it is now is how it's going to always be. And that's not true. Your kids get more independent, you get more time. Okay. So a lot of us get discouraged. We become pessimistic about the future of our friendship landscape because it's so hard to show up, and we're committing all our brain cells to school stuff. So how am I going to show up for a friend? I'm exhausted. Some of us, if we're really getting into it, have partners who do not believe in shared domestic labor. Okay. So we don't have time for friends because we're doing more than we should in the home. That's a whole other episode. Okay. But all these things work together to make us feel like we're falling behind. We don't have the attention span for it or the energy. And that is so real. But this is a season. It's not always going to be like this. There's also some grief and loss because friendships you had before babies don't look the same. And it's okay to kind of grieve, like, man, I wish the spontaneity I had, I wish I had that spontaneity back. I wish I was still as connected to my friends, but they don't seem as invested since I got pulled away to motherhood, and there's a sense of grief for who you used to be, for who you were with your friends, and for friendships that are not the same and probably will not ever be the same. There's a lot going on, but the good news is it's still possible. It is so possible to make new mom friends, to deepen certain relationships. This new period can actually function to bring you more joy in your friendships. I think it's just not knowing how. So it's not something you just like inherently, it's just not knowing how. So 3 tangible tips I can give to that woman. The first is for your existing friendships, I need you to take a little agency and authority. Say what you want. But there's no time. Right? We've got kids, they suck up all the day and we're like, how do we get here? There's no time. So that should create a little urgency in you to say what you want. That doesn't make you demanding. The right people want data on how to love you well. You miss your friend? Okay, hey girl, I feel like it's been so hard to connect since we had kids. Can we do like a Friday morning FaceTime and that just be like our little thing? Because I need to hear your voice, right? It's playful, it's light, but it's an invitation instead of an accusation. I don't hear from you anymore with the kids, I guess. No one's responding to that. It requires a certain level of vulnerability because at the heart of your issue is you miss your friend. So why not say, can we do Friday morning catch-ups? Can we do, the first Friday of the month? Can we walk the park with the kids? But how can you put some aspect of your friendship on autopilot so you can take out the thinking, okay, can you do September 12th at 4:00? That is a lot of extra work. So how can we put some aspect of our friendship on autopilot? I don't have to think about it. Every Friday, that's sacred space for my girl for a 30-minute catch up, and everybody else is gonna have to figure it out in the house, but that's my time. So how can I put certain things on autopilot? How can I front load situations with friends to let them know I prioritize you and I wish we had more? What can we do? And the right friends will probably be relieved that you said it first, okay? So with existing friends, say what you want, take up space to get the kind of friendship dynamic you're looking for. In terms of making new friends, it does become a little bit tougher because you have fewer mental resources, time. That's a resource, a limited resource. So try to take advantage of the people you're meeting naturally along your way. I think a lot of us are, and this is the last thing I'll say, I think a lot of us are overlooking opportunities to connect. You actually see and talk to people all the time. But I think some of us have a fantasy of what it looks like to like be in the coffee line and say something funny. And the woman behind us is like, oh my God, girl, you're so funny. Come hang out. Like that's really great, right? That's awesome. But it might look like the woman at the park who you see sometimes and she seems nice enough. But then you strike up a conversation. You're like, okay, this could be something. I'm curious to get to know her. Like, it's not always love at first sight. Can I just invite you into my life to just connect with you? And I often tell women, like, how do you make the most of the connections you do have? Because sometimes we carry around the capital G goal of I need to find friends, and it puts pressure on every interaction, or we're overlooking interaction because we're like, I don't know if she'd be like a good friend. I don't know if she, and we're kind of being a critic. So how can you make the most of the connections you do have and just stay curious? And the final tip would just be look at all the other things you are aside from mom. If you feel like you're kind of limited in that space, are you also a dancer and a creative and a person of faith and a reader? Okay. Are you in communities for those various intersectional identities? Because for some of us, it becomes mom. And then we're like, we're all my people. Well, you're also a creative, but you're not in any communities activating that. You're a woman of faith, but you stopped going to the services that make you feel really spiritually connected. So try to find ways to enlist your community, your home, your partner to support you while you say, I need to go and be more intentional about this and do something for me. That does not make you selfish. If anything, your kids need to see you model what it looks like to engage in friendships. So those are 3 ways to kind of start getting it done.
I love those ideas, and tangible tips are so helpful because I think a lot of us, like you said, we think it's going to just happen organically at the coffee shop or at the playground. And I think there's a lot of pressure, like, I need to meet my new best friend. And it's like, no, you can just meet some moms that are fun to hang out with and catch up with. Like, it doesn't always have to be that deep, right? Because that also just puts so much pressure on the whole situation. We're going to take one more quick break, and when we come back, I do want to talk a little bit about where to find mom friends and how to model this for our kids. We'll be right back. People are always asking me what I use to clean my house, especially because I have little kids and pets, and I tell them that Branch Basics is something that I've been using now for years. I love that they are plant and mineral-based ingredients, and Branch Basics is biodegradable and human safe, so it makes it ideal for families, especially those of us who have pets and really little kids and babies. Branch Basics is also women founded, which I love, and their refill model for their Branch Basics kit makes it really easy to keep your home clean year round, because once you run out of something, all you need to do is restock the concentrate and the oxygen boost. So basically you get a premium starter kit, which includes this concentrate that replaces dozens of your toxic cleaners. So it makes it really easy to detox your home. You can use it for everything. So from scrubbing counters in your kitchen to doing your laundry and cleaning your bathroom. This one formula does it all without harsh chemicals. It's free from fragrances, parabens, endocrine disruptors, and synthetic preservatives. So you can really trust that it's safe for babies, pets, and anyone else in your house that has sensitivities. You can make this year the year you say goodbye to toxic products by getting 15% off the premium starter kit by using code NOTU. That's NOTU at branchbasics.com. So that's 15% off your new Branch Basics premium starter kit at branchbasics.com with promo code NOTU. So you can make 2025 your cleanest and healthiest year yet with Branch Basics. If you're concerned with your child's or even your own eating habits, don't wait to reach out for help. Equip is a virtual evidence-based eating disorder treatment program that can help your child heal while staying at home. Built by experts in the field, Equip provides your family with a dedicated care team that can include a medical provider, therapist, dietitian, and peer and family mentors who have been through the recovery process and provide you with extra support. Equip can treat all types of eating disorders and is covered by insurance, and it has no wait list, so you don't have to wait to get the support you deserve. I have personal experience with this company. My sister works for Equip and has had nothing but just absolutely amazing things to say about their program and just how easy and accessible it makes treatment for families. So you can start your treatment journey at equip.health/sleepybaby to get a free consultation from Equip. That's equip.health/sleepybaby, and it's Equip, EQUIP. Danielle, I would love to hear a little bit more about what you suggest for moms who really just kind of need a push to get out there and make friends. What do you think of things like mom groups? Are those like a good idea? Do you need to find groups based on your particular values? Because one thing I do hear a lot from parents is like, oh, I can't be friends with this person anymore because they parent differently from me. Or, I don't look at my mom friend the same way anymore because she made this particular parenting choice that I don't agree with. So how do you suggest navigating those things? And do you think those things are actually that important?
Yes. So mom groups are a great way to meet friends. You guys understand each other's lifestyle, right? If you say, oh, I got to cancel last minute because he threw up everywhere. I don't have to explain.
Right.
They're like, oh, say less. Got you. So there's almost like a shorthand language. You know what I mean, girl. And she's like, I got you. So there's a certain ease and understanding that mom friends offer. It can also be a practical way to get plugged in because there's already mom groups. People are, it's like a gang sometimes. Like mom clubs and mom organizations are very strong. So it could be helpful to go there to source friends who feel more aligned. But if I go somewhere with 100 people, there might be like 3 ladies there who I'm like, oh, okay, she seems cool. We have the same humor. We kind of parent the same, but it makes sense maybe practically to go to a larger space and then find my little subgroup from that space that's already gathering, right? So that makes sense. And it's a practical way to find your people. I do want to speak to what you just said about how sometimes we feel like, she parents like this, and I don't know if I can stay friends with her. On some level, I get that, right? If certain things are exposed and we're like, oh, yikes, I think this speaks to a bigger value that this woman has, and it's really hard staying in relationship with a person who operates according to these values. That's a problem for me. That makes total sense to me, okay? I do want to encourage us to discern between what's a big values thing and what's just her making a different choice. Recently, a friend shared with me a choice that she made with her kid. And my first thought was like, that's crazy. Like, that's acceptable and unsafe. Haven't you read all of the literature on that? And I still stand by it. I feel like it was like a wild choice to make. I had to talk myself down in the moment because it's so easy, because symmetry is one of the things that brings us together, feelings of symmetry. So in this moment, I realized we're not very similar. And it goes from, whoa, she made that choice. I didn't know she was the kind of person who would, I can't be friends with a person who does these kinds of things. It gets big really fast, and we begin to conflate her choices with her character. Now, to some degree, yes, if a person's making a certain choice all the time, it does speak to their character. But I had to tell myself, okay, she loves her babies. She wants her babies to be safe. We have that in common. And she, in this moment, thought that choice would help to keep her baby safe and cared for. Like truly coaching myself down from getting panicky and thinking, oh, okay, no, we are so different. Because then it becomes harder to reconcile with somebody that I've othered. Instead of being like, okay, wouldn't make that choice, I can still hold her accountable and be like, girl, now there are other ways to do that. That was kind of risky, and then move on with my life. But we have to really just use judgment. Is it just a decision you wouldn't make? Or is it like a major values thing that feels like a threat to being in relational harmony? Sometimes there's a difference.
Okay, that's so helpful. Because I'm primarily in the sleep world. So I hear this all the time, like, oh my gosh, my sister-in-law, or oh my gosh, my best friend is practicing unsafe sleep. What do I say? Do I say something? Do I risk the friendship by making them feel defensive? And it's hard, especially when it's, our kids and our babies in potentially unsafe situations. And that's obviously an extreme thing. And, there are other variations of that people will tell me all the time. But I have friends that have made really different choices as far as sleep stuff too. And I don't know, it's maybe a little bit awkward to talk about it. And sometimes we just don't. Do you recommend just putting it all out there? Or maybe you have certain topics in your friendship that are just things that you can't agree on and you just don't discuss? What's healthy there?
Yeah, that's a great question, because this is inevitable. If you have a friend and she's also a mom, 100% there's going to be a moment where you watch her do something or overhear her talk about something she did and you think that's a wild choice. That's not okay. Whether it's that she's louder and fussier with her kids and you're like, ooh, gentle parenting, or she's co-sleeping, just whatever, right? Again, reminding ourselves, this person loves their kids. Obviously, they want their kids to be safe, and they believe that this is a way of doing it. Maybe I can't be around in certain situations because it's hard for me to see and look at it. That maybe is a different thing. Or if it's something where it's directly impacting my kids, like when they all come over to the house, okay, your kids are playing a little too rough now. And,
right.
Right. And if she hurts Elijah one more time, if she bites my baby one more time, so there are some things where it's like, okay, girl, this might be too much. But I think, let me just flip that around, right? We're thinking right now about the mindset of a person who discovers her friend thinks or chooses differently and is like, I don't know what to do here. But let me just challenge us if we flip it around. A lot of us are saying, man, I just need mom friends that don't judge. I can be myself. I can just show up. And they're like, girl, I get it. If you are looking for that, so are they. So we have to know, to some degree, does she get to show up as herself, her mom choices, and not be judged here? And there's a difference between me saying, so for example, like I'm big on our kids don't really do mini sweets, but I have some friends who kind of are chill about that. Do I start to think, gosh, she's kind of chill about that. She needs to be stricter about that. Doesn't she care about their health? That's kind of lazy, isn't it? You know, we get into all of that. Can it just be that this is the choice she's making for her kids? They're her kids. And maybe I say something to the degree of like, oh yeah, you know, we have gummies at the house if that's what you guys want. But I think, you know, I've got the kids on bananas this week, so we're just going to do that, you know. But as soon as I'm starting to convey to her, my choices are superior than yours. And I know that feels uncomfortable. But when we learn that a friend is making different mom choices and we start to withdraw, that's one sign you might be judging. You withdraw. You find yourself trying to fix her. So you're sending her lots of links and articles to change her minds. And the friend's like, okay, what are you communicating to me? That my choice is not good enough. That's what we're doing. When you start to find yourself saying things like, oh, I didn't know that you would do that, or I didn't know you guys were doing that, or no, we could never do that, or we don't do that, you know. Even with screen time for me, again, we're pretty strict on that. We just are. But I'm always delicate with how I word that with friends who do a lot of screen time. I'm trying to avoid language that positions me as having made a better choice. Maybe they're like, hey, we do think, you know, we are monitoring it and we're okay with certain shows and we're okay with certain things. And that's their parameters. And so it's tricky, but I think kind of knowing the line between I can say something like, I could say something that's a little bit, but ultimately my friend has autonomy. My friend loves her kids and she's operating out of love for her children. And so am I. And those choices might not mirror each other. Can to some degree I be okay with that? If I expect grace and non-judgment in my friendships, she wants that too. And so it's kind of tricky, but that's what we need to have strong friendships where we feel like we can really show up as ourselves.
Yeah. And assuming the best intentions, right? And one thing that strikes me too, as you discuss this, is like, I can almost guarantee that my husband is not having these types of conversations.
Oh my God.
Like
So
my
true.
husband is so emotionally intelligent. He's a clinical social worker. He like does therapy. Like he gets it. And he has friends that are very similar to that as well. They're not Neanderthal men. And still, they are not thinking about this stuff as much. So what do you see in research? What do you know from working with clients or writing your book? Why are women doing this to each other? Why are we so preoccupied with each other's parenting choices in our friendships?
That's such a good question. I just have theories because I think if you ask a million different experts, they'd say a million different things. I have theories. I have two ways I can answer that. The first is there's research that finds that women tend to integrate their friends into their lives to the degree of a sibling, men to the degree of a cousin. So whenever people say like, oh my gosh, you guys are so petty, you're getting so involved. Why? Because she's so integrated into my life that there probably is a higher chance of us falling out or bickering or whatever because she's so up in my business.
Right. Like, have you ever seen sisters go at it?
100%, because she's so involved in my life. She's helping me raise my children. We're sharing resources. I'm venting about my marriage. Like, this woman's in my life. She knows my health issues. Okay. So that sometimes feels riskier. So the research does show that they dissolve at a higher rate than men's friendships do. So again, we might think, oh, because we're so petty. No, because you're so deeply involved in my life. But if I'm holding somebody at arm's length and I keep you distant, I could be your best friend for 30 years because it ain't that deep. I'm likely not having fallouts with people I'm not invested in. And so like, that's something we have to kind of consider is that's why sometimes there's that friction because you're up in my business. But for men, and I know I'm generalizing, but the research shows that on average, their friendships are less deep. And so they're perceiving fewer violations. So if their dad friend is doing something a little unsafe with the kid, he might come home and tell you like, oh man, it was so crazy. He did blah, 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 blah. But they're still going to go hang out and play basketball tomorrow.
Right.
That's not a problem. That's not my business. Right. And we're like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I could be with somebody who's so dissimilar, you know, so it's just different in that way. The second reason I think we might be extra critical of each other's choices, I really do wonder how much of that is the cultural pressure for us to be a good mom, a perfect mom. So if I do all the research and I decide that it's best to feed my kid this thing, and you choose to feed your kid these foods, and I'm like, whoa, it's almost like we take that more personally because I feel like I made the right choice of being a good mom choice. So it's hard for my brain to hold space for I'm making this choice and you're making that choice. Well, only one of these can be true. Only one of these can be, but there's so much pressure to make the right choice as moms. I mean, we've seen this is age old, the pressure to wear certain kinds of modest clothing, this to talk a certain kind of way, to be meek. We've been getting that all the time. It extends to motherhood. So it's almost like when you are insecure about anything and having shame around anything, you are more critical of other people. So think about how critical you are of yourself. You're probably going to see that reflected if you have issues with every mom in your circle and judging her choices. I feel sympathy and compassion for that woman because she probably applies that same degree of criticism and judgment to herself, to her own choices of making the right choice. And I have sympathy for that. So I would just say, like, if you find yourself having something to say about every mom in your circle, she's too this, she's too hippy dippy, she's too crunchy and granola, she's too loud, and she's a hot mess mom. I want you to look at yourself truly and how much pressure you feel to make the right choice, and you can't go out of that because it's probably impacting your relationships indirectly as well.
So true. Oh my gosh. I just had chills like the entire time you were talking, and I'm just like nodding furiously for people who are listening and not looking at me. Yeah, just yes to all of that. So then how can we model healthy friendships? Like, what can we do? What do we say? How do we teach our kid how to be a good friend, how to prioritize their friends?
Well, the first is, I mean, this is going to sound very obvious, but it's true, is we can tell them what to say and do all day, but they're watching what we do. They're watching if I just had my friend over and then she leaves and then they hear me saying to my husband, like, sometimes she's just so blah, 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 blah. I had one client tell me that she realized that she did a lot of gossiping in her circle. But she noticed that she watched her mom do that, like be on the phone with somebody in the kitchen and then turn around and be like, yeah, girl, you know, blah, 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 blah. And it was like, oh, this is how we do it. We all talk about each other to each other, you know? And so like, what lessons currently would your kids be able to derive from watching you? If you were on mute and they were watching you, like a TV show on mute, what lessons would they be gathering about friendship? That's a good place to start. And there's a couple lessons we have to teach them. You know, one, especially for young girls, is you are no better or worse than any other girl. Mm-hmm. Better or worse. Because some of them are out here talking down to other girls. Some of us have the daughters who are not making others feel very invited. Okay, so girl, you're not better than anybody else. Or worse. So just kind of like in terms of these are your peers and we're all valued the same is a really good lesson to start. And in watching, do I speak in a way that would make her be like, this is not aligning, mom? Things about the right friends want information on what makes you feel loved. So boundaries early, especially again with young girls where we get praised for being agreeable. Okay. So for some of them, we need her to stand up for herself. When you have the alpha girl in class, I need you to know to stand up for the girl she's bullying. I need you to know that's what we do. Okay. You know, so you speak up for yourself. It takes courage, but you do that. Right. So there's lots of little lessons, but for the most part, and the last thing I'll say, which is specific to girls, you can have more than one best friend.
Yeah.
Because that becomes a whole thing. And for her to know, oh yeah, you should have lots of friends. Good for you, baby girl. You can have two besties. They're both your bestie. Okay. Because that's the whole thing. So, you know, there's lots of little lessons, but the main thing I'll say is how are you modeling it? And then take a beat whenever your kids bring you friend issues and ask yourself, okay, am I projecting my own stuff on her? And I'm talking to myself too. There are some things my son has come home and told me, and I feel myself getting extra fiery, but it's because maybe I flash back to when that happened to me, or I'm making sure what happened to me doesn't happen to him, and I'm overcorrecting, right? So how much of my advice to him is projecting my stuff on him, and how can I kind of coach him through that in a way that helps him to arrive at his own decisions? Like, well, how did they make you feel? Not good? Oof. Should we have friends that don't make us feel good? You know, as opposed to like, you don't let them run over you. You tell him. Right. So, which is hard. I mean, being a parent is generally hard because it's always confronting you with your own stuff. And that's just 100%, really difficult.
100%. But I like that idea of just like inviting questions and being curious instead of telling them how to feel or telling them exactly how they should handle it. Or, Yeah, it's so hard. My oldest is 6 as well, and my middle is my girl, and she's 4, and I can already see that stuff happening. I'm just like, no, this is too soon. It's too soon
Oh gosh,
already. Danielle, thank you so much. This has been such a fun conversation, and you've given us so many great ideas. And I know that in your book, Fighting for Our Friendships, you have so many more ideas and tips for women who are going through difficult seasons in their friendships or who are just wanting deeper friendships. The last question I have for you, though, is a little bit more of a personal one, and it's about parenthood, really, and motherhood. And what's something that you wish you knew? What's something no one told you before becoming a parent that you wish was talked about more?
Oh my gosh. Something that I wish I knew maybe before becoming a mother. Probably, I think it's maybe what I just said, is how much it was going to make me confront my own stuff. I'll be transparent with you, and I don't think I've ever said this out loud because I want to seem perfect to you. So I'm not going to say anything real, right? But I'm working on that. Something that I am currently struggling with and trying to figure out is, if you asked me 10 years ago if I had issues regulating my emotions, I would tell you no. I am realizing that I do in certain situations. So like if my kid gets hit in the head or he's crying or whatever, it takes a lot of work for me to stay like calm for him. I find myself, what happened? Instead of, okay, baby, all right, let's take a breath. And I don't want anxious children. And I'm really working on my reaction to things so that helps them to be calm and collected in the face of chaos. But I need them to see it, and I'm working on allowing them to see it because I really don't want anxious kids, and if they end up being okay, that's we'll deal with that. But I'm really working hard on being calm, even though I am feeling high emotions. So, I wasn't prepared for how much I'd have to work on myself in order to keep showing up for them in a healthy way.
Same. Yeah, same. I'm working on my reactionary stuff all the time as well. And I was just doing another interview before this with another teacher. And I said, oh my God, when I was a teacher, I had just infinite patience. And
yes.
it was just so different. But like your kids just have this way of bringing out your triggers. And what you said about like, you didn't know how much it would be about your own stuff. Can I just tell you that almost everybody that comes on the podcast that I ask this question, almost everybody says some version of that. So you are absolutely not alone.
I'm in good company. Yes.
You are not alone. I think we all find that very, very difficult. But I think it's also awesome that we're working on it. Like, I don't know if the generation or two above us even had that self-awareness to want to work on that. So I think it's great. Danielle, thank you so much for joining us. Where can everybody find you on Instagram and TikTok, and where can people find your book?
Yeah, everything lives at betterfemalefriendships.com. That's the podcast and all the things, betterfemalefriendships.com. And we're just out here with the goal of showing women tangible ways they can enjoy more satisfaction in their friendships. It is possible. And we're excited to be coming alongside them in that journey. And I want to say thank you to you for facilitating a moment to have this conversation because it's important, but I know there's so many other things to talk about. So thank you for hitting pause to talk about this specifically and for inviting me to lend my voice to the conversation. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I really appreciate you too. And I really think this is such an important topic, especially for women and for women as they go through motherhood, to not be so alone. So I really appreciate you and all your work, and I'll put all of that in the show notes as well so people can easily find you. So thanks again for joining. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for having me.
Are you a parent in need of a laugh and a little escape? Look no further. Parenting is a Joke is the podcast you've been waiting for. Hey, I'm Ophira Eisenberg. I'm a stand-up comic and parent. And each week I chat with one of my top comedian pals who, just like you, are juggling careers, busy lives and schedules, and raising a family. You can expect candid stories, hilarious mishaps that happen on stage and at home, and just a lot of laughs. There's no expert advice here. Well, actually, sometimes a good idea does sneak its way in, but mostly just pure, relatable fun to remind you that we're all in this parenting adventure together. New episodes of Parenting is a Joke drop every Tuesday, so tune in, get ready to laugh, unwind, and maybe even feel a little bit better about your own parenting. Because sometimes that's exactly what your therapist, pediatrician, and bartender ordered. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast platform.